Hello, everybody. Karl Diffenderfer here, and we are with Geoff Lapp, one of the coaches here at Higher Impact, Bruce Kent, and Randy Miller. And today we want to just talk as a group, but also to you about our time management and how we handle that, how we are successful with that, how we fail at that even, so that you can take some takeaways on how you can improve your own time management. And so I guess we probably should start with, how do we define time management? Why do we care?
Get more done, be more effective, actually not carry the burden around of procrastination. So those are some elements for me.
Go ahead.
I go with the whole stewarding of time, talents, and treasure. Like I think of time as just something that I long to steward the best that I can. I don't want to waste
Yeah, we
my
keep
life,
that,
kind of
right?
thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yep.
I think about time blocking when I think about it, just organizing my time and then the self-discipline of that. Like, I'm going to do this at this time, and if I can't do it at this time, then I'm going to find a different time to do it. I'm not going to like cross it off and then never do it. So that's what I think of. How about for you, Bruce?
I think the important thing about time management is once that minute's gone, we can never get it back. So we want to fill those minutes up with things that we're going to accomplish in our personal life, in our spiritual life, with our friends, relationships, and our business. And we want to make sure that we're not wasting precious minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of back to that question, do you live to work or work to live?
Right.
And I meet way too many people say that they work to live, but when you really study their behaviors, when you look at how they actually govern their life, they really do live to work. That's it. It's shown through our actions, and I had to evaluate that at one point and say, hey, can I really truly disconnect when I get home at night and be with all in with my family, or am I constantly checking my phone? Oh, I got to get back to that person, because then I'm not really giving them my all. So.
Yeah, I have some recent reading that said if I'm making a decision, either moving toward my purpose and goals, or I'm making decisions to move away from my purpose and goals.
Yeah.
And if I'm overwhelmed, if I'm distracted, if I allow things to draw me away, then I'm not using my energy. And maybe versus time, it's really more about how am I focusing my energy versus how do I manage time. It's like time is this ongoing thing, and how do I manage it? I've had to continue to, how do I manage my energy? How do I manage my energy? What am I doing right now that's moving me toward what I want to accomplish? And sometimes accomplishing is accomplishing rest. Sometimes it's accomplishing time with your family. Sometimes it's accomplishing re-energizing and reading and maybe a quiet pause. There's a lot of ways to manage energy versus just thinking about how do I manage a to-do list and time and calendar and so forth.
I think that time management, one of the things you just said, is not just what am I doing at work today, right? But it's also how do I get in all these other things, and most importantly, family. How do I get family? I think you guys have heard. One night, my wife called me at my office, and when I was practicing law, and she called me at 9 o'clock, and I answered the phone and just talking with her at 9 o'clock at night, and she small talk, and I just said, well, what do you want? She goes, well, I just wanted to let you know that Sean's 5 and Angie's 2. That hit me right between the eyes, right? My time management was not allowing my family to be part of what I was doing, even though I loved them a lot. And that night I made a decision that I would never miss dinner again at my house. And that meant restructuring everything I did at the office to make sure I didn't miss dinner at the house.
Yeah, so as you're saying that, I think of the two words. You say energy, I think of the word capacity, and I also think of priority. And so when we look at our time, where our priorities are will show by what we do with our time. But then also our capacity plays into that. And so, I see a lot of people doing so much, but they're only doing it maybe to 10 to 20% of the true capacity of what could be done with it. It's not really 100%. They're not putting their all into it. And they'd be better off, and this kind of goes into the next thing that I was thinking, they'd be better off to say no to more so that they can say yes to the things that they should do and be more successful or more productive or more efficient at those things.
I think that's a great point about saying no, because at that time when my wife called me, I was on 18 different board of directors, which meant I was out a lot during the month, besides meeting clients at night. And that night I told her I'm going to be a little bit later because I got to write 17 see you later letters. Because I had to say no to them in order to be able to do what I wanted to do, and that was my priority of being with my family.
Yeah, we say yes to too much, don't we?
Yes, yeah, you do.
And for me, my wife will attest to this. Like when I say yes to too much, I actually I follow through with less. So I say yes to a bunch of things, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to get them all done. And so then I'm letting people down because I've said yes to all these things, and there's really no way for me to do them all. What are your thoughts on all that, Geoff?
For me, it's been, what you resonated with me, what you said about just that that call that you received. I grew up in a family where, my dad was starting a business and things like that, and so really rarely saw him, and if I did see him, he was sleeping. So not disrespecting my dad. I loved my dad, generous. He was a great father and great provider and stuff for our family. And yet, that phone call, this what I heard you say, just triggered in me. Just like what I really would have valued more is the dad that was home and all there when he was home. And I understand. We all have our own individual journey that we're walking through, and so I understand it now as an adult. But for a season probably of my journey, I just was like, Dad, well, why didn't you just shift your priorities around? I'm only learning that now at the ripe old age of 49, just like to start reprioritizing that. So because of just my experience with how I viewed how to do this, how to time manage more effectively, I didn't really have someone to look to be that example,
Yeah.
So what we pursue will show where our priorities lie, and if we're pursuing something actively and not, and it's not in the hierarchy of importance, then we got a problem.
In that hierarchy, I just recently heard someone say there's no such thing as having priorities. It's a priority. Priorities is actually not, it does not have a historical background. Priority, the word is choose one thing. It's the one thing. Now you can have a priority in 1 hour. This is what I'm going to do for the hour, or this is what I'm going to do for the day, or I have this priority over a period of time. But it's like we can't have a whole lot of priorities because then nothing becomes a priority. Then we don't really give our attention, our energy to the fulfillment of that. Now we can say our family is a priority, and we can say work is a priority. But then what we're doing is now we're balancing where we're focusing our energy and when. And it's like, okay, during the day or whatever your business or work requires, during that time I'm focused on that thing, whether it's work or whatever it is. And then if I'm involved in other things, I recently heard a dad who said that this was actually at a wedding reception. This dad was giving this great speech, and he was talking about his daughter, and he said he was actually thanking her because as a 6-year-old she negotiated with him. He said, you cannot keep coming, he had 4 girls, you cannot keep coming to me and quitting things that you've committed to do. So he had a little family meeting with these 4 girls and his wife, and he said, so your mom and I have agreed that if you start something, you're going to need to finish that thing, whatever it is. So a couple months pass, his 6-year-old tugs on his pants leg and says, Dad, I have a deal. And this was great, because now she has a business degree, she's in negotiation, but she started at 6, and this is what he was kind of applauding, He said, here she stood, her little eyes looking up at me, she tugs on my pant leg, and she says, I have a deal for you. We want to start softball, but if we start softball, we want you to be our coach for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and I said, yes. Because he thought, well, she's taking me up, she's calling me out on what I said.
Yeah.
So now I have to, and he's a major contractor, building contractor, and he said, I had to make decisions to say no to some things so that I could give my family and my girls, I could make them the priority during the time that I was going to set aside for them. And he said some number of years, and I want to say it was 11 years. He said, and here I am 11 years later. He said, and I have a great business, and I have a great family, and it's our opportunity to celebrate one of our daughters today. And he looked at her and he said, and thank you. He was thanking her for her negotiation skills that she drew him in to being a coach, because he continues to be a coach for the softball team. And so it made me think about the connection between what we're talking about now and really that priority of family and attention and energy. And it's about a choice. It's about, yes, there are segments of our lives. Rest could be one, vacation could be one. There are segments that we have priority within those segments. And it was a great story from a dad about celebrating his kids actually hearing him and paying attention.
So then how would you say that, what would you say is the key thing that somebody needs to do in order to know how they should prioritize things?
I'd say it's values. What are your values? And where do you put? What are your internal values and your family values?
Yeah,
business values.
I agree with that. Also, you got different aspects of it too. Because you have your work, right? And in your work, you have to prioritize what needs to be done at work, and then you got faith and family, rest. Any extracurricular activities you want to handle, you got to learn how to put those in. When I'm retired now, so I have the calendar on the phone, and it's not as filled as it used to be. So my ability to handle my time management is a lot easier today than it was when I was in business, when I had so many things I had to accomplish that day, and then also accomplish those things that had to be done at home, what I wanted to do at home. So now I'm shifting to where I have a lot more time to self, which is envious, in some respects. But at the same time, I'm also building another practice, but I have the ability to arrange things. When I was in the private practice segment of before I retired, it was a struggle filling that book out. Because I had court dates I had to fit in, and then I had to fit people in on those court dates, and do this thing. And it was a struggle sometimes trying to prioritize. Court came first. I figured I better show up.
I think on very basic terms, in order for us to manage our time well, I tell people moments of pause lead to reflection, and reflection leads to awareness. And so we as business people, business professionals, it's real easy for us to go, drive hard all day long. But if we don't stop and pause and think, then we're never going to be able to organize our thoughts, to make lists. And then in order to prioritize something, you have to be able to do that. And then you organize it and build it into, okay, well, this is the hierarchy of focus that I'm going to have today. I kind of think, and sometimes, Mark Gungor, he's a guy that does marriage seminars, and he says that men think in boxes, and our boxes are in our mind, and the boxes don't touch, and you can only be in one box at a time. And I often think of that. I'm like that, I like to have a box open. I focus on that. Well, the problem is that sometimes I open that box and I forget to close it, and then, oh, okay, I didn't get over to this box today, or what about this box? And there's a verse in the Bible that says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And that's true for all of us. If we have our treasure, if we're pursuing treasure and we miss the mark on what the treasure actually is, then we've messed up. We've failed.
So Geoff, I'm going to call you out on your background a bit. Now, I know you have a business background, but you also have a teaching background.
Yeah.
And you've worked with so many students that, they come up to the teacher and they're late with their homework, or they didn't get the paper written,
I thought the
or
dog
whatever.
ate it.
Yeah, the dog's involved somewhere in this story. I'm sure you've
There's been
heard
several.
several dogs over the year. But
Cats too. I mean, but
when you I actually did have my dog eat one of my kids' homework.
okay, so
But he also ate paper tissues, out of the tissue box.
Exactly.
And surprised when you pull one, another one comes out, So, that
And it
was
sticks to your
a
tongue,
great
too.
day. That was a great day for that dog. We had to learn to put the tissue box up much higher. So, with that said, though, when a teenager comes to you as a teacher, and in your past, when they would do that and they were late on something, what kind of coaching might you offer that teen? Because we were talking about having values and placing value on and prioritizing time. And
yes.
well, how would you approach that with?
Wow. I mean,
Because I'm
it
sure
goes
some
back
people
to,
that are listening have teenagers.
Well,
that are
exactly.
struggling with
Well,
this,
it goes back to what you were saying about its values. It is. You mentioned the V word. I mean, it's really about your values. And so for me to try and instill in you a particular value of to give you a list of different things to try and do to make you more time management aware or to actually do that, it doesn't work.
Right.
So it's really kind of coaching them through what do they value? I mean, what's your priority list? I mean, when you start the day, like I was just thinking of, you mentioned scripture there. I mean, my start of each day is, what I hear from the Lord is, seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you as well. So to me, I'm like, okay, that's my first priority of the day. And so I'm seeking first, and then is right. So that's my value, but I would not, how I would coach somebody in that is, so what do you think about most during the day? What are you reading right now? Well, for kids, it's probably not reading. What are you watching lately? Because that's what's making up your values. And so it's not really about if you did your homework or if the dog ate your homework. It really goes back to, foundationally, what do you value most? And most likely, parents, you care most about what you care most about. And so homework, it doesn't bother me that a kid would forget their homework. Even maybe it kind of bothers me if they lie about it.
Yeah.
I mean, with the dog eat my homework, but what I'm thinking is what do you value most? That's going to influence how you're going to take the day. And so I'm an hour by hour guy. Lord, I need thee every hour. So I'm kind of I got to pause hour by hour and actually really think about that, because I don't have boxes either. My box is wide open throughout the day. And so to me, it's trying to, hour by hour, just seek first. And that's how
I'm glad you didn't suggest to them that they shoot the dog.
I don't know. Well, maybe that might have to happen. I don't know, but no, of course not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we bought a crate, and some people don't like crates, but we bought a crate, and the dog would just go in the crate, and we put the Kleenex box on top of the crate so the dog wouldn't get to the Kleenex box. But
Very good.
it's like the kids, don't put your homework on the floor. Don't put it on the table where the dog can get to it. It's paper. This dog likes paper. So it's a matter of self-management and value management. Most of us, Carl, go back to what you said. Most of us really don't pause. We don't pause, and we don't reflect. And it's something else. Something else feels like it has to be done before I can sit down and pause and give time for reflection and give time for ideas.
Well, and if you study some of the famous people of history that have had those epiphany moments, if you want to use the word epiphany, it happened in their moments of pause. It wasn't that they were in the middle of their work doing something. They were taking a break from whatever they were doing to pause their mind, and in that moment they got it. And so if you study a lot of the major discoveries of our past, they came out of those guys taking that time to stop and slow down and say, okay, what am I missing? Where should I be focusing? Those types of things.
Yeah.
Our founding forefathers did it a lot. You know,
Yeah.
you look at all the journals they filled up, all the books they wrote, all the books they read. I got to see Thomas Jefferson's library. Amazing, astounding. That guy read a lot of books and pretty respectable books too.
And invented a lot of things and did a lot with just the time that he had. I think there's so many time stealers
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
And they steal away from my time and your time if we choose
Yeah.
to allow them to do so.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up and package this for everybody watching. And if we take we'll have one key takeaway we offer to them, would that be a good, what do you think?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've been offering to clients recently to consider is to think in terms of not just blocking time, but actually blocking minutes. To say, in fact, recently I just had someone. I said, so consider blocking 90 minutes, and so through the conversation, over about a half minute or so, this conversation started, and their response was, well, you know, it may be difficult to set aside an hour and a half. And I said, no, I didn't ask you to set aside an hour and a half. I asked you to set aside 90 minutes. And that's different because what that person did is immediately they took on it the emotional weight of an hour and a half. And it felt different to them. So if you think about 90 minutes, just set a timer and focus for 90 minutes. Now, you know, if you get distracted, you have to go do something, you know, even if it's go to the restroom or get a drink or whatever, you know, a drink of water and come back to your desk. Whatever it is, it's going to take you 10 to 12 minutes to get refocused fully again. Consider that in that 90-minute time frame. But you'll be surprised at how much you can get done in the 90 minutes. And then I heard someone, you're talking about those who are celebrity or famous people, they often focused for 4 hours at a time. They set aside 4-hour blocks of time to concentrate. Now that didn't mean they didn't continue beyond the 4 hours, but at least 4 hours. Some great authors and others who set aside and use that time frame as a block of time. Setting a timer.
Without the distractions of a cell phone.
Without the distractions of a cell phone, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Set it aside. You know, don't open that email. You know, in our day and age, you know, and some of them are current celebrity in their authorship and so forth. That if I mentioned their names, you would know. But they concentrate their energy and their effort in those blocks of time, and that is really, it's hard to do. Until you start doing it and it becomes a habit, then it's like I don't want to not do that. I've got to do that, you know, and because there's so much productivity that comes out of it. So that's one of the things that I've not only doing myself, but also assisting others to help them think about.
I think I agree with the blocking of the time, and I really agree with the pausing. I think you really need time to pause, which allows you to determine what you need to do in that time management. But I think the blocking of time to do specific things, it's a condition. You got to condition yourself to do it. In our day and age, let's be honest with each other. You know, we're sitting there and I'm watching a TED talk, and I'm trying to learn something about coaching or something like that, and I look over on the side on YouTube, and they found Bigfoot. All right, man, you know, hey, they found Bigfoot, right? So hey, let's go find out what they did with Bigfoot.
Shiny object.
And you know, an hour later, you're sitting there going, "What did I do?" You know, so you know, you really have to condition yourself to stick with what you want to do for that time period.
Yeah.
Because I like to watch 2 or 3 TED Talks in a row. You know, I like those, but you gotta, you know, kind of do this, you know, or you know, so you don't see the one side there, and that's tough. And you know, we, like you said before, we have a lot of distractions.
Sure.
And the cell phone's the biggest one, but also the computer. But I believe those 2 things are really important. Setting the time, and setting that time includes pausing time. Pausing time.
I think for me, I was reminded of a coaching conversation I once had where I was meeting with a person, and they wanted to work on their time, and in that time conversation we had, it was funny because they wanted to fix their time management immediately. Like they were like, I want to do this. I want to take a month. I want to work on it. And I said to them, I said, well, okay, how many years has it taken you to build all the bad behaviors into your time management that you have now? And they've been in business maybe 10 years, I think. And they were like, well, it's been quite a few years. I said, so you expect to fix that overnight? And they're like, no. And really, ultimately, that's what it was for me too. I took years of just constantly changing really little small things and testing things and saying, okay, well, that didn't work. How do I do it? What about this? And what about this? And as time has gone by, I've really been able to become much more focused and self-disciplined and all the things that I need to be. This year, I'm working on exercise and saying, okay, how do I stay consistent with my exercise? And mastering that. And in our conversation today, I was thinking about the fact that I got to keep that box open for exercise. How am I going to trigger myself every day to say, I got to do that today, and really be doing that? Because, you know, things happen, things get in the way. You got to run here to get the kids, do this, do that. And before you know it, that energy is gone for you to be able to go out and do a run or something like that. So that's my takeaway. How about for you, Geoff?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I think of that all of yours are great. I mean, that's kind of how I think and how I do things is oftentimes I tell my kids this, not only in the classroom, just my kids at home. It's like whenever they're doing an athletic event, whether they're going to play an instrument or anything like that, I'm saying practice like you play, right? So I say that, but I haven't always practiced what I teach. And so I'm only learning now as I'm getting into my 40-somethings the value in not only practicing what I teach, but one of the things I would often share to my students in the classroom, I would say, how are your 4-H's today? And they're like, what are you talking about? 4-H's, you know. The 4-H club, a lot of students that I've had historically have been maybe a member of the 4-H club, but that ag organization that started in the early 1900s. And what they teach is practicing good head, heart, hands, and health, overall health. And so I've often said, so how are your 4-H's today? Anybody a little bit out on the head side today? Anybody? Because we need you all here if you're not. So that would be often we'd have conversations before class begin, because I think goes back to my hour by hour. I need to retrain my brain, my heart, my hands, and head to just get back into sync, if you will. Because if one of them's missing, it's going to impact the rest. So
That's good. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we certainly hope that you find value out of this. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk with you. We just help people all that we can. And then if it ever makes sense for that person to become a client, we talk about that then. So don't feel afraid to ask us questions, because we're happy to help on a free level too. And so we look forward to talking to you next time, and we'll be reaching out with more future conversations. Thanks.